I'll be taking a spring break for a few weeks. In the meantime, we're repodcasting some past bike adventures. Hope you enjoy.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/265, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109, and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 265th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name is Tim Mooney. I'm so excited to have you here today. On this edition, this is the first of two parts. The first part of the 2021 cleanup tour. And the fun thing about this is, if you harken back to the last tour, the Game of Chance tour, you'll notice that there were a lot of forks in the road. And quite honestly, I wanted a few of the things to happen. I was rooting for the Game of Chance to route me in a couple of particular ways because they were experiences that if I had missed them, I would have been really bummed out. I would have considered 2021 to have been a missed opportunity if I didn't get to do these things. Part one of the cleanup tour includes one of the two things that was an absolute must, as something I really needed to do. And that is the uphill and downhill on the Cumberland end of the Great Allegheny Passage. I'm really excited to share this with you. It was super fun. I had intended for it to be a little bit different. I get into that at the beginning here, but it ended up being, honestly, one of my favorite days cycling of the entire year, just because, well, I had it all to myself for the most part, except for a few people. Hope you enjoy. Good morning from a stupid long line at a place I shouldn't be getting anything from food-wise, but I'm here anyways. Hey, it's a brand new tour, and it's going to be a no camping tour. Again, because it is in the upper 20s right now, and although I dearly love winter camping, this one's not a good one. I do want to do this as a camping trip at some point because I think that there's a really interesting wild camping opportunity where I'm going to hopefully end up today. Today is a drive first. As you can probably tell, I'm in La Crosse, and I am going to be going to Cumberland, Maryland. Yes, Cumberland, Maryland. One of the consequences of the falling apart of the Game of Chance tour was I looked at a lot of the different types of opportunities that I had through the random Game of Chance, and I had my favorites. I'm going to be honest. And one of the favorites that I had was I wanted to ride at least a piece of the Gap because I haven't ridden any part of the Gap this year. And I always like to get on wheels down on it at least once, if not do a through ride. Of course, last year I did the 4x44 ride, and this year I was like, even though it's freaking cold out, it's the last chance. The tunnel up at the top there, the big one, the big Savage Tunnel, that's still open as of today. Will be closed probably by the time you're hearing this. I believe it's closing in early December. But the fun part about today's possibility is I may get to be able to get in there one last time before the end of the year and then turn around and come bombing back down the thing. I don't know if I'm going to have enough time. That's going to be the real key here. It's still morning. It's relatively early morning here. Not that early. It's early enough that I think that I've got a shot to do this because it's about an hour drive from where I'm at right now to where I would be parking. Originally, I was going to do this. There is a really good looking wild camping spot that is right after the state line between Maryland and Pennsylvania. And I've always thought that would be a really cool place to go. I was planning on doing that, and then this morning's temperatures were just simply too rough. I will be going up to that spot, and I think that even though I'm not going to be camping there today, I'm going to give it a really good scope. out because I'm curious if it indeed is a good spot. I don't think it's a very good hidden spot, which means it's not a very good stealth camping spot. But for the most part, I would say that if I would be camping there, I probably would be doing it one of those kind of like easy in, easy out kind of situations. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I'm very excited about all of this. I'm excited to get back on the Gap. This is the first of at least 2 parts to get us through the month of December here, because this is what I'm going to be calling the cleanup tour. And this is going to be doing the things that were at the top of my list that didn't end up getting picked in the game of chance. So it's like the opposite of the game of chance. It's stuff that was on there that I really wanted to do. And it also happens to be things that I really would like to do at least one more time. Now, I previewed one of those things that's going to be part of the part 2 or part 3, depending on how things go with the rides here. And that's going to be revealed later on. But today, this part, the one you're listening to, the podcast you're listening to, it's the Gap. So now that I'm getting close to being able to order my breakfast food, we're just going to whoosh into the next part, which is happening now. And just like that, we are in Cumberland, Maryland. I am literally within eyesight. Within eyesight? Is that how one says things? I can see the Krabby Pig from where I am parked. This is actually something I may have mentioned before, but it's really worth raising here. Despite the fact that I'm not going to be doing a multi-night trip, I'm parking in the lot that is the free monitored parking lot for the Great Allegheny Passage here in Cumberland. Effective words, free and monitored. It is literally right below I-68. It is an overpass. There's plenty of parking in here. It's well marked, and it is quite literally on the last few hundred yards of the C&O, technically, because by the Krabby Pig, that is still technically the C&O, I believe, if memory serves. Or actually, no, that is true, because mile marker 184 is back a bit. So yeah, this is the last half mile. As I mentioned, if it's more than 100 yards to the mile marker 0/mile marker 184.5, I may be overstating it. Yeah, so the great part about all of this is that it's really quick and easy for me to undo the bike. Free parking. I know my car's in a good, safe place. If you are going to be starting a Gap ride or a C&O ride here in Cumberland, and you're driving, this is a fantastic opportunity for you. I think it's the city of Cumberland that provides this. Whoever it is, it's great and it's really handy. You can find it pretty easily. The Gap's website is really good. It actually has a very helpful picture so that you can see what lot it is. And then if you use Google Street View, you can find it pretty easily. I've been here enough times that I usually can nose my way around and find it. But yeah, I forgot that it's literally next to the Krabby Pig. For those of you who are new to the show, the Krabby Pig is the place. And I think I mentioned this at the end of the C&O guide that was recently put out. Go check that out, by the way. That the Krabby Pig is my traditional end of tour or beginning of tour dining. That will definitely be the case today, even though this is really a glorified day trip. I've noticed that my tours have become really like day trip rides, but really the intention was always there for multi-day rides, but things intervenes. But I thought I would do them anyways. And today I'm really excited about this. I was sitting there going, why am I driving so far? I could just go over to Williamsport or do some other thing. And I was like, no, it's time to do a different trail than I've been doing. I've been on the C&O a bunch, and yeah, it's nice to be here. Cumberland's a very picturesque place. We got confluence of a couple of rivers. You've got is it the northern fork of the Potomac? I can't even remember. I should know these things off the top of my head. But in any event, it's a really good place to begin or end a tour, and I'm excited to take the bike off the car and get rolling. A couple of things of note in terms of gear. I am riding with 2 panniers. I don't really need it, but I thought I'd like to ride this as if I was riding quote-unquote heavy, even though I'm not going to be riding with nearly the amount of gear that I would normally do. Just because, why not? And also, I just threw a bunch of things in there. I threw in some extra water. I can't be guaranteed that the water up in Frostburg is going to be on. It may be, it may not be. I have no idea. That's a question mark for later on in this episode. Also, I brought my stove because I thought, hey, it'd be fun to have a nice hot cup of coffee up at the top there, wherever I end up stopping. I think my goal is, if I'm not feeling Big Savage today, my real kind of like short goal is to get up to the Mason-Dixon line, the Pennsylvania border. It's always such a nice place to stop. And as I mentioned in the earlier segment here, I do want to scope out whether or not there's a decent wild camping spot there. My recollection is that there's a really good spot for pitching a tent. The Gap is not a great wild camping / stealth camping trail, just by the very nature of the very steep mountains that you're going through for so much of it. Very steep banks down to the Castleman River during parts. There's just not a lot of flat spots to pitch a tent. Of course, it's not encouraged. In fact, it's actively discouraged to do it. And there's also a lot of private land around here as well. And of course, I've spoken my piece on what my rules are for stealth camping, and everyone's got their own thing, and you need to make peace with whatever your own personal rules are for that. I am about ready to get going. I'm noticing a lot of people out for a nice walk, and it looks like a beautiful day. Most of the leaves are down, so this is going to feel a little bit more like a winter ride than a fall ride. That's all good. I will mention more of my gear as it becomes appropriate. I've got tons of cold weather gear. That's, of course, going to become much more necessary for the downhill, and I'll talk a little bit more about what I've got for the downhill. Turns out, something I bought for earlier tour this year that I didn't need is going to come in really handy for the tour today. So, more to come. Oh, I should mention, I am riding the Goblin. That bike that I kept saying was retired, and it's been the only bike that I've been riding since. Yeah, that one. The dulcet tones of I-68 are what you're hearing above me now. A couple of things about riding the Goblin. I am taking good care of this brand new chain, which is a helpful thing, as we all learned in Oregon this year. I don't expect that there to be any problems. It's been really riding quite well since I replaced that chain. The other thing that I am doing is, and I think I mentioned this in the Oregon ride this summer, I have a handlebar bag, but it is broken. The tabs that kind of keep it in place are broken. So what I do instead to keep it from falling out is I always use a brand new zip tie every time. And it holds it in really well, and that's going to be really important for the downhill later today, because it's bumpy and a little bit crazy in terms of the shake that you'll get. So it's exciting. I've never ridden this bike on the Gap. So new trail for this bike. First time this year. And let me just lock up the car and we'll get going. There you go. If you ever wanted to know what the horn of the La Crosse sounded like. Yeah, I have way more stuff than I need today. But that's okay. All right. A car with Louisiana tags, which I think is fascinating. Brakes feel a little spongy, but that might just be because it's a little on the chilly side. And we're just getting things together. All right. Yeah, that rear brake is really spongy, is the word I'll use. Passing by Cumberland's bike shop here, I actually got the gearing that is currently on my really good touring bike, my other Safari. What was done there? I was pretty satisfied with that. And we are now, when I said 100 yards, as I mentioned, that was probably overestimating, and I'm about to roll right over marker 0. In fact, why don't we take a moment here? Oh, you know what? It looks like they have changed this. That's fun. So you'll be here with me as I take the picture. You can check this out. This one I may just put into Instagram today. There we go. Yeah, I really like it. I really like that. It includes the Western Maryland Railway on it. By river, by rail, by road. That's interesting. I will say it de-emphasizes the nature of the Gap and the C&O. It doesn't mention mile mark. No, it does say mile marker 0. It is in there. It's just different. I actually don't mind that at all. Anyways, I will not bore you by tapping out the message that I'm going to put on that here. Maybe I'll just do it later. It'll be on, by the time you're listening to this, it may be several images in to Instagram, but very excited to get rolling here on the Great Allegheny Passage here. I did put wheels down on the western part of the C&O, if only barely, but still, it's pretty cool. All right, off we go. Great Allegheny Passage, 2021. I made it. From about mile marker 3.5, give or take. I'm between 3 and 4. We'll just put it that way. Put my glove back on while we ride here. Bunch of different things. So early in this ride. Number one, I got a beautiful picture. Like sometimes bike tours are made up of moments, am I right? And I always talk about green tunnels. In fact, again, quick callback to the C&O guide from last episode, or a couple episodes ago, pardon me. We have a best of in between. But the foliage is mostly down, but I went through on the outskirts of the city of Cumberland, a yellow tunnel for the first time in my cycling career that I can remember at least. And I got a beautiful picture of it, and I'm really excited to share that with you all. So go check that out over on the Instagram feed if you haven't already. Yeah, it's just really interesting. Just the views already so far have just been pretty magnificent. I'm in the mountains where my place is in West Virginia, but from this perspective in a valley, it's nice to be able to look up and see so much more. And although, like I mentioned, most of the trees have dropped their leaves, there's still a few species that have the last remaining dregs up. It's like this orange, I'm pleased to announce. And it just is nice. And the smell of folks who have got fires going in their fireplaces kind of wafting through the air, that's just really nice. Other things of note, the trail condition is just beautiful right now. One thing I'll mention is on this part of the gap, the trail condition, it's so compacted. I would imagine the Pittsburgh side has more traffic than this side, but this is probably the second most traveled area of the gap. And what's compacted down, it's not quite the same. I wonder if it drains quite as well as some of the other portions where there's not as much traffic going on. I wish one of these days, maybe I need to get somebody on the show that can speak to the trail surface science. I'm so interested in that and so ignorant about it. Maybe that's something I can do over the winter, see if I can find somebody to talk about it. In any event, the trail around mile marker 2 is when it goes from paved to the classic gap surface, this cinder, crushed limestone, whatever variety of surfaces makes it up. It's been really joyful to ride on. It's got that little bit of give to it so that when you're riding in cold tires like I am right now, and I don't have as much kind of shock absorption as I normally do in warmer weather, it's really forgiving and nice. So love that. One other thing of note, and I think now I remember, it's because I started recording for this last point, probably should have made it number 1. For those of you who have been with the show since the last time I rode the gap in this area, you may remember I ran into a timber rattler. Not ran into specifically, but found one. And just went right by where it was. It's not there now. It's a little chillier, and it's probably in a burrow. Oh, looks like some folks cutting wood to clear the trail. That's nice. All right. Hi there. Hello. Oh yes, going by the Cumberland Bone Cave as well. What a nice day to ride. Yeah, it's funny because I don't know if you picked up on it. I may even mentioned it more explicitly, but I was, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do it? And isn't it funny how when you maybe have a little reluctance starting a ride and you get out and start doing the ride, that reluctance just disappears within a few pumps of the pedals. I certainly find that to be the case. I said I was between mile marker 3 and 4, and I now see mile marker 4. So that seems like a good place to end this chapter, this segment. More to come. That was very short.
I know you don't realize that every time you hear the whoosh. Sometimes it's long, sometimes it's short. That was maybe a couple hundred yards because I found something really interesting. S&S Maple Camp in Corriganville, Maryland. I must be in Corriganville, Maryland, or they are in Corriganville, Maryland. But right here, literally off the trail, tapping into a variety of maple trees in the stand, is a giant, large tanks to me, of maple sap. And there's a whole network, there's networks of tubing all leading into that. Really fascinating. I've never seen that. I think I've seen those tanks before, but I don't remember seeing or realizing that it was for maple syrup. Now, of course, there's no trespassing signs all over the place, posted private property, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, that's really interesting. It's a nice little find. It's always nice to see new things on trails that you know really well. That's cool. One other thing that I forgot to mention in the last segment, which was a good reason for me to stop and take a picture of the tanks and start chatting with y'all again, is one of the things that I am trying to do on this uphill slog, and slog is an overstatement, let's be honest. It's, as you can tell, you're not hearing me huff and puff. It is certainly uphill, and you certainly get to take a great advantage of it coming downhill, where you're mostly coasting, maybe spinning a little bit just to keep your legs warm. But it's heat management. One of the things that I struggle with in cold weather riding is figuring out what to wear in a way that doesn't leave me exposed to potential problems down the road. What am I talking about? I'm talking about overheating in cold temperatures. So one of the challenges on this trail in particular, this time of year, is your instinct is to bundle up a lot. And it doesn't take terribly long, especially if you ride hot like I do, that you could start sweating in your layers, and it's in the 30s. So the first thing I did was take the advice from somebody I read, and I wish I could remember who it was so I could give them proper credit, but it's start cold. You always want to start cold, because if you start comfortable, then you're definitely going to heat up too much. And the interesting thing was that worked for quite a while. Now that I've been going for more than 20, 30 minutes, give or take, including all the stops and stuff, I have done a couple of things. Let me tell you what I started with. I started with hat, long sleeve wool layer, puffy vest, long underwear, and an outer thing of long pants. So I got a double layer on the lower half. I've got single layer plus a puffy on the upper half. And then I had the hat. What I found pretty quickly was I zipped down the puffy. It's still on me, but it is zipped down. And I'm finding that's good because I can feel puffs of fairly warm air escaping, which has been good for temperature management. The other thing that I did, maybe a mile ago or so, is I actually took off the hat. And of course, all of you survivalists out there, because I get the survivalist demo is very high for this pod, I'm sure. You're like, yo, so much of your heat comes out of the top of your head. I can't remember the percentage, but it's really high. And the answer is, yeah, I know. Because what this is allowing me to do is to keep my core layers on me and to vent off a lot of my heat from the top of my head as I ride here. And I'm finding that's working out okay. I am getting a little bit of a glistening sweat on my face. And I may have to take some breaks to let the body cool down in order to avoid having too much sweat go on. But this does seem to be the right way to go for this ride, at least at this temperature. I do have the option, of course, of taking off this puffy layer, and frankly, I think that may end up having to happen sooner rather than later, just because of the heat that I seem to be generating. And I knew this was going to be potentially a problem when I put on the double layer for the legs. But I did that because I knew that there wouldn't be a really good option to add a layer easily up at the top of the mountain when I start my descent. And I do have actually a third layer, my rain pants, that I'm going to use as a windbreaker for the descent. Because as you all will probably know, when you go downhill, you're creating wind. And even though this is a relatively calm, bone dry, almost no wind day, that downhill is going to generate a wind chill factor for me, where we'll probably be in the low 40s when I do the descent, but it could be dropping because it is, as I mentioned, going to be going well below, I believe, well below freezing tonight. 10 to 15 miles per hour of relative wind on top of that temperature. That's frostbite territory. That's uncomfortable. So I've got extra layers for all of that, knowing I won't be generating a quarter of the amount of heat that I'm doing right now. And I got to be ready for it. Multiple layers of gloves, although these are working really great. I just have a fluffy, what do I even call these? These are probably cotton too. They're doing just fine for this uphill, but again, probably partially because I'm generating a fair amount of heat here. So temperature management, it's going to be a thing. And as I did last time, managed to yak through an entire mile, and we were at mile marker 5. I guess I'll see you in a few hundred yards. Maybe we'll go longer this time. From the outskirts of the Brush Tunnel, built in 1911, thought I would take you for the ride through this one, going uphill, because downhill probably would be a little noisy. Built in 1911. By the way, this is a trail that effectively parallels what was once the Western Maryland rail line, which, of course, you know those words from Western Maryland Rail Trail, which means it doesn't really go anyplace anymore. Here we go. Thought maybe we'll give you the sounds without me yakking. Here we go. It's paved, so I can upshift a bit. On your right. And we're out. I don't know if that was a very compelling radio, but thought we would try that out. One other thing of note before I leave you on this segment, the far side, or the near side of the tunnel, the Cumberland side of that tunnel, had pretty excellent flat spot for camping. But it's the same story that I think is going to be told further up here, where I thought I could wild camp. It's there, but it's very exposed. Yeah, a trail user will see you from literally 100 yards away or more. The sight lines are just right there. And if you go further, first of all, you lose a flat spot. Second of all, you're on private property. And out this way, I really think that folks should respect the private property rights of the folks that are right off the trail, because those are the people that can make trouble for the trail's access down the line or for future trails. The arguments of private property landowners is people are going to trespass on my property all the time. And I think we've learned for the most part that's not the case, certainly as a percentage of trail users. However, all it takes is for some bad actors to spoil some things. That certainly happened in the Oregon Outback Trail from years ago. Remember when I had to go on my rant? That's an old school pod you got to go back for. But yeah, a bunch of people screwed it up for everyone. So don't screw it up for everyone. Make sure you are practicing good practices. All right, that clearly means I need to stop. Catch you in a moment. About halfway to Frostburg, as best I can tell. So that's mile marker 8-ish, 8.5. So maybe it's a little more than halfway. I have given up on the outer shell layer. I am just too warm, which this morning when I first let Mookie out, I would not have thought would be the case, because it was damn cold this morning. I took an interesting picture that I may or may not make it to the feed. I am wearing a bizarre set of sunglasses right now, just for the goof mostly, but they are just basically these orange shaded ones. They're not very dark, but they're funky. If you are of a certain age, as I am, you may remember the Blue Blockers commercial from back in the day, those cheap, horrible sunglasses. These look reminiscent to those. They're a little bit nicer than that. I got them because they're orange and I kind of like them, and I thought that they were reminiscent of the face shield that Luke wore when he was Red 5 going into the trench. There's your Star Wars reference for this particular podcast. But anyways, the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is that the oak leaves on the ground right now look positively shimmering in gold. And when I took them off, I realized that's not what they actually look like. It's just how the sun is hitting them and my eyes are interpreting it through these shades. So I put them over the lens of the iPhone and tried to give you some semblance of what I'm seeing. It is glorious. It is just beautiful and almost worth riding all the way up here just for that. Took a mini break while I did that. Told you already, I stripped off the outermost layer. The next layer, I'm going shirtless, and I would not put Western Maryland nor Western Pennsylvania through that horrible sight right now. So I'll probably keep this layer on. And it's, as long as I'm feeling good, I feel pleasantly cool right now, which is better than the point where I was, which was hot and sweating. And I don't like to have sweat when I stop. So better to be a little chilly, and then when I stop, be able to put on layers so I don't get cold, than to be overheating. Yeah, it is temperature management is a struggle for me at times. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, holy crap, it's in the 30s and he's down to one layer, how does he handle the summers? And the answer is, you hear me complain on every single episode of every single show during the summers. I am a warm-blooded person. Would it be warm-blooded if I run hot? We'll call it that. Yeah, that's how it is. Let's see. We are at a crossroad up here, the name of which I can now see. It is Woodcock Hollow Road, one of the many cross streets that you go through, even up here, even back here. A lot of residences that are very close to the trail, and a lot of folks that probably get a chance to use it. I've seen a lot of folks out with dogs today, going out for a beautiful walk. Man, you cannot beat today. We've got some weather coming as we get closer to the Thanksgiving holiday here in the States, in this part of the world. And so I think people are taking advantage of some nice weather here today. It's supposed to be dry until I believe tomorrow night. So the part 2 of this ride may be happening Sunday, it may be happening Monday as I am recording this for you all. And if it wasn't obvious, you're hearing this several weeks later from when I recorded it. Just happens to be how the podcast schedule goes. You also know things. You also know how I did on the bike draft. Did I win? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I probably won. Maybe I won. I have no idea. Aaron sometimes cheats. He doesn't cheat. I have this private theory that he plugged the votes last time. But don't tell him. Don't tell Aaron Flores that I think that he committed voter fraud. No, never mind. So I don't blame people for getting out now while the weather is good. I am one of them. We are about to come to a crossing of this rail line. I should mention, and I'm sure I've mentioned this before if you've ridden this trail, you know this, that this is an active rail line. But active is maybe a bit of a misnomer. There's a tourist train, basically, that goes on it. This is not an active rail line by any stretch of the imagination. Basically goes up to Frostburg and then turns around. A lot of folks locally, and you travel to do this, they will ride the train up and bike down. That's a service they provide when they're running. I do not get the impression that they are running today. But I do not begrudge people doing that. The downhill is fun. But at the point where you may have just heard, we get paved for a moment and we have to cross the rail line. For reasons that are probably due mostly to geography, topography, however you want to say. The rail line, there's not a lot of space between where the rails are and a sheer cliff face going up, and it probably would have been very difficult to have the trail there. There's plenty of space on the other side. That's why we crossed. So, trail making 101. All right, more to come. From my turnaround point just outside of Frostburg, yeah, feeling like this is a good time. Starting to chill down a little bit more. Ate all my food that I brought up. That's another good reason. And frankly, I was like wanting a cup of coffee. So, you can hear the Green Dragon going away here. I hauled the whole thing up here. It'd be nice to get a little something warm in me right now as I sat down. It is remarkable how fast you cool off when you stop in temperatures like this. I remember going back to that spring tour I did on the Olympic Peninsula a few years ago, how I kept going and going because it was about this temperature, but full on rain. And I knew if I stopped for too long, that it would be bad. And it would have been. The couple of times I did stop there, it was because there were stores there that I could go into and warm up a little bit, get some hot coffee in me, and then go back out into the slop. Definite type 2 fun. This has been much more enjoyable than that element of it was. But I do think that it's okay. Yeah, I've done what I need to do. And here's why. I'm stopped here at one of many spots that I have stopped along the way here. And I've forgotten how many flat, good spots there are for camping. Like I said, the majority of them are out in the open. But if you are going to be stopping right at dusk, and you intend to leave right at sunup, I think that there is definitely the opportunity to do some very quick and dirty stealth camping around here. There's even some spots around mile marker 10 or so, which is further back down from where I just came from, that will give you a little bit more hidden spots. Now, it is pretty apparent that is also on private property. So again, that is a decision you have to make. I tend to eschew the private property. I tend to go only on public lands or lands that are apparently public that aren't posted, and then stuff is posted all over the place around here, all up and down the Gap. I do know the folks on the Gap would tell you, please just camp in spots that are meant for camping. They are provided in a variety of places. There are private campgrounds as well. But sometimes, as you all know, who have done bicycle touring or bike camping and bike packing more to the point, there are times when your day is over for a variety of reasons that are beyond your control, and sometimes you've got to stop. So that's just a little bit of a heads up for you here. Now, of course, you're not far from Cumberland, Maryland at this point where I'm at, or from Frostburg, although Frostburg's a pain in the ass to get to. There's those switchbacks, but there's stuff up there, quite a bit of stuff. Hotels included. I have stopped there, as you all know, on a tour where my rear tire went kaplooey. So yeah, there are opportunities, but there are options for you that are suboptimal, but possible. So that was the goal of this trip, was to get wheels on the trail, get up here and go. But this is only half, of course. I get to enjoy a nice cup of coffee, again. I hope that audio picks up. That's just one of my favorite sounds, the whoosh of a stove. It looks nice and warm. So I'm going to leave you. I'm going to make my cup of coffee, and then we are going to start to turn around and go on the predominantly downhill all the way back down to Cumberland. And yes, we're going to have an early dinner, late lunch, depending on what your standards are for time, at the Krabby Pig before I take off and head on back. Part 1 or part 1A complete. Part 1B to come. All right, delicious cup of coffee downed. That was the best idea I had all day, was to bring my stove. It was nice. Somebody was driving on the trail. Did not seem to be somebody official. It's funny, around here, I will guarantee you that this trail probably bypasses like long winding mountain roads if you drive on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if folks do that frequently, even though they're not supposed to. Wish they wouldn't. Person waved though, which was nice. I appreciate the wave. All right. Now, not every single moment of this 16, 17-ish miles that I'm about to do is downhill. There's flat parts here and there, but the predominant, just like it was predominantly uphill on the way here, means that it's predominantly downhill on the way back, which means I should be able to do it a lot faster, which should be good, which means that I'll be back mid-afternoon or so, which is good. So I'll be cold, it'll be chilly. I did not put on all my layers yet because I'm like, I'd like to have room to add more if this is indeed cold. A little breeze kicked up. The sun went behind some heavier clouds, so we are full overcast. We are full little breezy. Of course, we're going to have the wind now too, so I am no longer worried about sweating. I'm worried about staying as warm as I can to the point of comfort. I have another wool layer I could put on. I have another windbreaker, my rain jacket, which could be like it's a windbreaker. I've got the rain pants, which could be as a windbreaker. Right now, it just feels like that might be overkill. So we're going to see how this goes, and I will go figure it out. Got the hat back on, got the puffy back on. See how this goes. Do I regret not camping up here? I think that here in the moment, it's so early. Like, I got up here earlier than I thought I would. And because I started earlier, quite frankly, because I wasn't going to camp. But let's say that I was going to camp. I probably would have started later. Because I would have had to have done some shopping, gotten some more food than I brought up here. I guess that's a one regret. If I had if I had some more snacks with me, maybe would I have gone further? Maybe. I don't know. Sorry, I'm playing with I see what the issue is. The reason why, you can hear it. You hear that click? The reason why this rear brake is spongy is because the housing is not tightly in there. So I'm going to have to figure out a way how to fix that. It's not going to be a problem for this ride, but this is going to be one of the bits of off-season maintenance that this bike is going to get or not get, depending on whether or not it's going to be doing any more heavy-duty riding down the road or if I'm just going to end up retiring it. All right, enough yakking. Here we go. We're going to be going down, and I've been tracking this on my fitness tracker, and oh, isn't it nice? The new, if you care about such things, and apologies if the wind kicks up here, the new operating system on the Apple Watches have a nice new feature for those of us who like to track fitness for cycling. It automatically pauses when you stop and unpauses when you move, and you don't have to do a darn thing, which is nice. Already, I can tell that this is going to be a chilly ride. Torso's fine. Arms, since they only have one layer, definitely feeling it. You're probably hearing the amount of wind. I am just coasting at the moment. I don't think I'm going to be too aggressive, but it is interesting because I won't be moving, as I noted, uphill. I'm just getting heat just sucked from me the whole time. So I think I may, a little bit further down, I may take the opportunity to put another layer on. I'm feeling like that the lower part is going to be fine. I feel like that the upper is going to need maybe a little bit more. So here we go on a little bit more of a downhill. Yeah, just from a comfort perspective, it's pretty chilly. Yeah, that wind chill is definitely down there. Probably what it would be as low at about 8 in the morning tomorrow getting out of a tent. So yeah, that's chilly. That is some chilly times. All right, I'm going to pull over. And I'm going to take advantage of putting on some additional layers. So next up, you'll hear me further on down the mountain. Okie dokie, said somebody who's much older than me. If I sound weird, it's because I've got the thing that I previewed earlier, my smoke mask.
from Oregon that I thought I might need because of a potential wildfire smoke, which I ran into at the very end, but it wasn't enough that I needed it. It is very handy for protecting a good half of my face. So I'm going to be using this as the rest of the downhill. It's chilly. I may not be recording much of this descent because I have to strip off at least my one glove layer to be able to hit the phone. Also, it's probably not sounding real great through the mask, as we have all learned through COVID. By the way, this has valves in it, so it's not a good COVID mask, but it's excellent for smoke and, at least preliminarily, excellent for cold. All right, let's get rolling. You may not hear me until the bottom of the hill because it's chilly. It's chilly, y'all. What a difference. All right, more to come. From mile marker 2, after a chilly descent, I'll tell you what I did. That mask was everything. Really fantastic. I've seen that done, my Minnesota listeners. I have definitely seen you all on your snowy trails bicycling year-round in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and have seen that type of mask being used. That was fantastic. A really fantastic wedge against the cold. It really felt very comfortable having that on, and it just kept most of my face quite warm and toasty, which was fantastic. And not the least of which is the air that I breathed in was slightly heated by the remnants of the heat that I exhaled. It warmed up the mask, so the air was a little bit warmer. So that was all great. The other thing that I added, just one more thing, was the rain jacket. The windbreaker element of that type of a exterior shell is fantastic. I'll use the word again, wedge against the cold. But yeah, the wind chill was certainly, I'd be estimating, I could probably look it up, but you figure I was going 12 to 15 miles per hour in low 40s. That's got to be down in the 20s Fahrenheit, which is not comfortable. But beautiful, picturesque spot. I'm going to take just a picture of this. This is unbelievable. What the white bark on these trees. I don't know what kind of trees. They've dropped all their leaves against the backdrop of these cliffs. That is just stunning. What a beautiful day to ride. Cold as it was, just so nice to be able to get out here and make this all happen. I've less than 2 miles to go. I am on the pavement portion here, and I don't know if I've got too much more to say. I will say, as a reminder to folks that are in a similar situation, now this will happen on long descents when it's very cold outside, to remember that you're going to want to cycle your legs a little bit as you go down a big downhill on a cold day like this. I was feeling very, not fatigued, but almost, and not cramped, but that kind of like cold muscle feeling. It just is so uncomfortable. It's a dull ache. And now that I'm on flatter land, I think I'm loosening those up again. So that's really quite good. Yeah. Other than that, hey, turns out faster going downhill than it is uphill. It's pretty great. You can feel some weather coming. Growing up in Western New York like I did, you get this instinct about when some weather's going to come in. And I don't think the forecast says that anything's coming in imminently, but boy, it sure as heck feels like it. And that's also probably a good indicator that I made the right choice. As much as I really was looking forward to camping again this year, boy, it just, maybe I'm getting too old for this stuff, to paraphrase a movie. But yeah, I think I'll be much happier throwing a log on the fire tonight, hanging out, drinking some beers. I think that'll be all right. I think that'll be a pretty good consolation prize to not camping in sub-freezing weather, which is fun in its own right. It's dark before 5 o'clock, and all it does is get progressively colder. And yeah, I think I'll be happier elsewhere. Probably will chat one more time with you once we get back to mile marker 0. And just like that, we are back. Bike is loaded up, locked to the rack. The rack has that leash that I talked about when
we went on that big road trip this year with the Lacrosse as the camper. I'm going to Krabby Pig, and that means that this is the end of this part of the cleanup tour.
Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.